Howdy y'all, it is me, JSoldierPro once again. I am continuing my quest to rank every Mario Kart track from Super Mario Kart to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and today I'm finishing Super Circuit by ranking its extra tracks. These are remakes of every Super Mario Kart track, so I'll refer to them as SNES tracks in the ranking. Hope y'all enjoy. Number 20, SNES Choco Island 2. This was my least favorite track in Super Mario Kart, and no surprise, it's also my least favorite extra track. Annoying off-road, slippery mud, and excessive bump spam do not make for an appealing track experience. This is, however, a slight improvement over the original solely because the track actually looks nice for once, unlike the original, which was absolutely hideous. Number 19, SNES Vanilla Lake 1. Racing around an icy lake for 5 laps was not appealing in the original. Having to clear ice debris out of the road was absolutely awful, and this remake manages to offer both. Add to all of this constant screen jittering Snowland style, and it's safe to say this is an even worse version of an already miserable track. Number 18, SNES Vanilla Lake 2. This is the inevitable point of the ranking where the Super Mario Kart and Super Circuit extra track rankings diverge, because otherwise I wouldn't have bothered making this its own video. The original track had a lot of issues for sure, and I definitely didn't like it, but I still ranked it 11th overall, mainly because of the ice parkour, which honestly made the track more interesting than many SNES tracks. This remake, however, has screen shaking added to this track, which goes about as well with ice parkour as you'd probably imagine. Not to mention, the water is still brutal, and there's still annoying ice blocks everywhere. Number 17, SNES Bowser Castle 1. Given Super Circuit has 4 Nitro Bowser Castle tracks, you may assume that the SNES Bowser Castle tracks are remade pretty well, but you would unfortunately be terribly mistaken. The visuals are worse, the soundtrack is an absolute dumpster fire, all the boost panels are gone, and on top of all of this, all the thwomps are gone. This is absolutely crazy considering all 4 Nitro Bowser Castle tracks have thwomps, and on top of this, the Vanilla Lake tracks all have ice blocks, and those don't even appear in any of the Nitro tracks. I don't know what Super Circuit was thinking, but whatever the case, this remake is absolutely atrocious. The gameplay consists of giant barren straightaways where nothing happens, as well as 2 long barren jumping sequences that are themselves glorified straightaways. This track is an absolute disgrace and is miserable to have to experience. Number 16, SNES Bowser Castle 2. Take every downgrade I mentioned for SNES Bowser Castle 1 and apply it to this track, because they all apply here as well. In addition to those, you can also add to the list an even worse dead end, because why not? The original track had a dead end, which I absolutely despise, but at the bare minimum, you could do this interesting feather shortcut utilizing it. I initially thought this remake made the feather shortcut entirely impossible, but it turns out you can still do it in some kind of way by doing a respawn shortcut. It is, however, extremely strange to do, as you have to do a well-timed jump, well-timed mushroom use, and you have to bonk into the wall, which somehow makes Lakitu respawn you on the other side. The feather variant is much more fun to go for in my opinion, and as a whole I don't really like respawn shortcuts, but hey, at least the shortcut is still possible to some extent, I guess. I consider the original version of this track to be one of the most underrated tracks in the entire series, but this remake takes everything I liked about the original and absolutely butchers it. And so I can confidently say this remake isn't underrated. It is absolutely garbage. Number 15, SNES Choco Island 1. This excessive bump spam monstrosity was not fun in the slightest in Super Mario Kart, and it still absolutely sucks in Super Circuit. Like Choco Island 2, this track is only an improvement over the original because it looks prettier visually. Number 14, SNES Donut Plains 3. I cannot believe I'm about about to say this, but this remake actually fixes some of the issues with the original track. Notably by removing all those pesky Monty moles, which were awful in Super Mario Kart, and by adding this jump ramp, which means you no longer have to time a jump over the water. Also, the additional ramp allows for this shortcut to be possible, which is super cool. These changes, in addition to prettier visuals, definitely makes this better than the original version. But unfortunately, like the original, I still absolutely hate playing on this track. There's still slippery road in the latter portion of it, the track as a whole is a bit too narrow, and the water is still way too brutal if you fall into it. Definitely better, but still not a fan.
Oh no!
Number 13, SNES Mario Circuit 1. A remake of the first ever Mario Kart track, and unfortunately, this is an insult to the original as it actively makes the original worse. This is done by removing the various pipes from around the track, making the music notably worse, and the track is themed after Peach Circuit for some odd reason, even though Mario Circuit is also a nitro. Number 12, SNES Donut Plains 2. Another surprising example of Super Circuit actually improving the gameplay on one of the extra tracks. In this specific case, it's entirely because of those pesky Monty moles being eradicated. Without the Monty moles, this goes from being an annoying track to have to experience to really just one of the most forgettable tracks ever created. Really, the only notable aspects about this remake are that the visuals are better and that the track is a bit too narrow. Number 11, SNES Donut Plains 1. Despite being the only SNES Donut Plains track to not have improved gameplay in Super Circuit, this still remains my favorite of the three. This is essentially the same story as SNES Donut Plains 2, but without scaling issues. And this is quite literally the original, but with prettier visuals. Number 10, SNES Koopa Beach 1. Racing around a giant archipelago is an appealing idea for a Mario Kart track, but unfortunately the original left much to be desired, and this remake also leaves a lot to be desired. Really, the differences come down to visuals, with the remake looking slightly prettier, and there being no Cheep Cheeps in the remake. The track is so wide and expansive that the Cheep Cheeps hardly served as hazards in the original anyways, so I'll consider the remake a slight improvement solely because it looks prettier visually. Number 9, SNES Ghost Valley 1. The original version of this track was undoubtedly carried enormously by its ending feather shortcut, and thank God that shortcut is indeed possible in Super Circuit. Align yourself with this wooden plank, mushroom off this jump ramp, and make sure to brake like crazy to ensure that you don't fall off. The ending shortcut is even more fun to perform in Super Circuit than it ever was in Super Mario Kart. That plus a better background definitely make this an improvement, although it is worth noting that the music is somehow even worse than the original, and the rest of the track has absolutely nothing going on. Number 8, SNES Rainbow Road. The original SNES Rainbow Road is by far my favorite Super Mario Kart track, and I stand by the opinion that that track is straight up amazing in Super Mario Kart. That begs the question, why is SNES Rainbow Road all the way down in bad tier and only 8th on this list? Well, dear viewer, that's quite simple. This is, without a doubt, the biggest downgrade of any single track in the entirety of Mario Kart Super Circuit. The original is one of the best soundtracks in the history of Mario Kart, and yet this remix in Mario Kart Super Circuit sounds awful. It's horrible to listen to. Rainbow Roads are supposed to have a nice, beautiful, majestic soundtrack, and this makes me want to play the track on mute. That should be a crime. All the rainbow thwomps from the original are gone, and that's unfortunate because they were essential to keep the original very interesting. Without them, the gameplay is far more stale. Speaking of more stale gameplay, all the jump ramps are removed. This removes the shortcut potential the original had, like this, for example. Despite all of the removals, this remake does, at the very least, retain the brutality of the track. And that is simply because it's extremely hard to stay on the track and to race on it. The original was super hard, of course, as well, but the difference is the original was satisfying to overcome. This remake isn't! This remake downgrades so much. It is the most soulless, most depressing, and most decrepit Rainbow Road track in the entire series. This isn't satisfying to overcome. This isn't something that screams, you overcame Mario Kart Super Circuit. This genuinely feels like checking off a box on a list of chores that I never wanted to do to begin with. Come to think of it, actually, that's exactly what the extra tracks feel like, so I guess this atrocity of a remake is fitting. The only things I can give this remake are that, one, the brutal difficulty of the track is fitting for Rainbow Road, and secondly, it's absolutely gorgeous. I could rant even more, but I need to move on with the rankings, so let's go. Number 7, SNES Bowser Castle 3. You may assume that this SNES Bowser Castle track got off the hook because it wasn't in worst tier alongside the other two, and while this is definitely better than the other two, make no mistake, this still got downgraded into its grave. The visuals are worse, the soundtrack is a complete dumpster fire, all the thwomps are gone, all the boost panels are gone, and as a bonus, most of the item boxes are also gone, because I guess why not at this point. The jumping sequence is incredibly forgettable with really nothing going on. The split path portion is entirely pointless, literally no reason to not take the middle route unless you miss it. And the entire track as a whole simply doesn't have the charm or the appeal it did in Super Mario Kart. Despite how butchered this remake unfortunately is, it's still definitely the best of the 3 SNES Bowser Castle tracks in Super Circuit. It's more complex and more interesting than SNES Bowser Castle 1, but unlike SNES Bowser Castle 2, there isn't any stupid troll dead end, and as a whole, this track isn't nearly as annoying to deal with. This is how it's at bad tier and not worst tier, as even in this butchered state, it's still one of the better extra tracks. Number 6, SNES Mario Circuit 4. I described the original as glorified turn spam, and without any of the pipes or oil slicks, this track is even more so turn spam in this remake. Of course, the music is worse, the background is still Peach Circuit for some odd reason, but as a whole, I'd rather play this than the butchered versions of SNES Rainbow Road, SNES Bowser Castle 3, and the tracks prior to this point as well, which is why this is in 6th place. Number 5, SNES Mario Circuit 3. No, dear viewer, this isn't a mistake. I have double-checked and triple-checked. Yes, it pains me to say it, but SNES Mario Circuit 3 is actually in the top 5. May God help us all. Take all of the downgrades I mentioned in SNES Mario Circuit 4 and apply it to this remake. You can also add to that list removing the single boost panel at the end of the track, because I guess Super Circuit really has a thing against SNES tracks having boost panels. This is above SNES Mario Circuit 4 solely because the shortcut is better implemented at the end. I guess on the bright side, this track is actually themed after Mario Circuit instead of Peach Circuit, which makes more sense, but not like that's really notable.
So I missed.
Number 4, SNES Ghost Valley 2. We have finally reached mid-tier, and this means from here onwards, I actually don't find the tracks entirely awful. In fact, the tracks are at least slightly enjoyable. It only took us until the top 4 to finally get some ever so slightly enjoyable tracks. The tiny shortcut is a bit weird to do using a mushroom, but once you get the hang of it, it's perfectly doable. The ending boost panel being gone is again strange, but I never found it that useful in the original anyways, so I don't really care much that it's gone. And as a whole, I'll say this is a very slight improvement just because the background looks better than what the original offered. Number 3, SNES Koopa Beach 2. I didn't mind the removal of the cheat sheets on SNES Koopa Beach 1 because of how wide and expansive the track was, but on SNES Koopa Beach 2, this is a lot more problematic since the cheat sheets actually served as obstacles to dodge in the original. As a result of this, I actually do prefer SNES Koopa Beach 2 in its original just because there were actual cheat sheets to avoid. I still very much prefer the visuals in the remake though. Number 2, SNES Ghost Valley 3. This may just be my favorite visual improvement out of any of the extra tracks. Both SNES Ghost Valleys 1 and 2 used visuals from Boo Lake, and while that was definitely an improvement, SNES Ghost Valley 3 using Broken Pier really just adds an extra menacing touch to this track, and given it's the most brutally difficult of the three, I definitely appreciate the visual change. In addition to creepier visuals, the crazy feather shortcut from the original is indeed possible in Super Circuit as well. Mushroom into the jump ramp, hold sharp right, and make sure to brake like crazy, and you will be able to make the gap. It's pretty fun to perform, though it is definitely a bit challenging, and I also like how you can get an item box out of it if you do it just right. All things considered, this is the same as the original, but definitely improved in several aspects. This is just shy of being my favorite extra track, though. My favorite extra track in Mario Kart Super Circuit is... number 1, SNES Mario Circuit 2! Despite being my favorite extra track, this is still sadly a downgrade since it removes the various pipes and even the oil slick from the original version. Not to mention the music is also worse once again. That being said, however, what made this track so unique in the original was having this giant jump at the end, and thank God it is actually retained in this remake. This jump is simple, nice, fun, and sure, it's really not much by modern standards. Compared to the rest of the extra tracks, that's enough for this to be number 1. There's nothing annoying about this track, the jump is fun, and the rest of the track is innocent enough. And that's how SNES Mario Circuit 2 manages to be the best of this terrible track selection. Breaking down the Super Circuit extra track tier list, there are 7 worst tracks, 9 bad tracks, 4 mid tracks, and no tracks beyond that. Since the extra tracks are all remakes of Super Mario Kart tracks, here's my ranking of all Super Mario Kart tracks as well, just to compare the two. And as painful as this is, the original Super Mario Kart tracks are as a whole better than the Super Circuit extra track remakes. That is downright terrifying. Getting straight to the point, no, I cannot honestly recommend a single one of these tracks. The extra tracks at best get mid, and when I say mid, I mean extremely low tier mid. Almost bad, but not quite bad. These tracks are so bad, even Nintendo wants to forget they created them, and I think it's safe to say when your creator regrets creating you, you suck. That being said, yeah, don't unlock these tracks. It's not worth the pain, the effort, the misery, it's not. But if you do, for whatever insane reason, decide I want to try these tracks, good luck, you'll need it. I have now ranked every single Nitro track in Mario Kart Super Circuit, and I've ranked every extra track in Mario Kart Super Circuit. This leaves only one logical conclusion. It's time to rank all 40 Mario Kart Super Circuit tracks from worst to best in one giant ranking. I will not explain my reasons, as I've already done that for all the tracks individually, so I'll do the speedrun style, going one to the next. Let's do this! Number 40, SNES Choco Island 2, which starts off worst tier. Number 39, SNES Vanilla Lake 1. Number 38, SNES Vanilla Lake 2. Number 37, SNES Bowser Castle 1. Number 36, SNES Bowser Castle 2. Number 35, SNES Choco Island 1. Number 34, Snowland. Number 33, SNES Donut Plains 3. Number 32, SNES Mario Circuit 1, which brings us up to bad tier. Number 31, SNES Donut Plains 2. Number 30, Peach Circuit. Number 29, Mario Circuit. Number 28, SNES Donut Plains 1. Number 27, SNES Koopa Beach 1. Number 26, SNES Ghost Valley 1. Number 25, SNES Rainbow Road. Number 24, SNES Bowser Castle 3. Number 23, SNES Mario Circuit 4. Number 22, SNES Mario Circuit 3. Number 21, SNES Ghost Valley 2, which brings us up to mid-tier. Number 20, SNES Koopa Beach 2. Number 19, SNES Ghost Valley 3. Number 18, SNES Mario Circuit 2, the best of the extra tracks. Number 17, Boo Lake. Number 16, Bowser Castle 1. Number 15, Broken Pier. Number 14, Yoshi Desert. Number 13, Shy Guy Beach, which brings us up to good tier. Number 12, Luigi Circuit. Number 11, Bowser Castle 2. Number 10, Riverside Park. Number 9, Cheep Cheep Island, which brings us up to great tier. Number 8, Bowser Castle 3. Number 7, Sunset Wilds, which brings us up to amazing tier. Number 6, Lakeside Park. Number 5, Bowser Castle 4, which brings us up to masterpiece tier. Number 4, Cheeseland. Number 3, Ribbon Road. Number 2, Sky Garden. And the best track in Mario Kart Super Circuit is none other than number 1, Rainbow Road, which achieves perfection tier. Breaking it down, there are 8 worst tracks, 11 bad tracks, 8 mid tracks, 4 good tracks, 2 great tracks, 2 amazing tracks, 4 masterpiece tracks, and 1 perfect track. The great divide between the nitro tracks and the extra tracks is as clear as day in this massive combined ranking. I hope you do check out Mario Kart Super Circuit for its nitro tracks, but do yourself a favor and skip the extra tracks entirely. That's all for Mario Kart Super Circuit. See you next time when I cover Mario Kart Double Dash! Yes! I am so excited to rank all the tracks in this game. Let's go! Yes!